Why focus today's message on Christ the servant rather than Christ the King? Simply because for many of us, Christ as servant is more authentic. Will Gaffney, in a woman's lectionary for the whole church, observes, monarchy is, as all human institutions, an enterprise that is doomed to fail. Yet monarchy and its conventions have given us language for God, imperfect, but familiar. Jesus takes that language and those conventions and inverts them. The reign of God and its majesty are very different than the splendor of the world's sovereigns. It is in Jesus's humanness that we glimpse God's very being. Just as each of us reveal God's majesty and our own. So back to servant leaders. His name is Godfrey Zamujo. I first met him on the Feast of Christ the King 19 years ago. Right? Who remembers that, right? During my first week in Africa, while visiting an organic farm in the Republic of Benin. For context, quick geography lesson. When traveling in West Africa, along the coast from Nigeria, which is at the curve, headed west toward Liberia, where our beloved community member Ann Kelly and the Holy Rosary Sisters minister, Benin is the first of 4 countries one travels through. So it's Benin, Togo, Ghana, and the Ivory Coast. Born in Nigeria and raised in California, Zamujo explained that as a graduate student at the University of California at Irvine, he was so moved by the image of a hungry child in Africa on a TV commercial for CARE. Remember, the humanitarian organization focused on fighting poverty and hunger, that it reframed his life from academic scholar to social entrepreneur. So what did he do? He researched sustainable agricultural practices. He raised funds. He relocated to Africa. He created a development process, empowered a team, and started Project Shanghai, a zero waste organic farm. In 1985, Shanghai began on a garbage dump in Porto Novo, Benin, on an acre of land that had been donated by the government of Benin. Borrowing the Shanghai name from a 15th century flourishing West African empire, over the past 37 years, the project has grown to more than 60 acres in Porto Novo and to multiple sites in Benin and numerous countries in Africa. In addition, Zamujo started a leadership academy that trains up to 400 students a year in hands-on organic agriculture. By effectively applying his PhDs in electrical engineering, computer science, management sciences, and economic philosophy, Zamujo created a systems approach grounded in the belief that if you give people responsibility and infuse them with the knowledge, skills, discipline, and a value system, they will respond and flourish. In 1993, he was awarded the Africa Prize for Leadership for the Sustainable End of Hunger. The United Nations recognizes Project Shanghai as a center of excellence. The project has blossomed into a community center that offers services, including internet access and a bank, as well as the training center, primary and secondary food production, stores, and restaurants. And like it was yesterday, rather than 19 years ago, I remember walking under the canopy of the palm trees, taking pictures until I filled the memory card of my digital camera. Remember, it was 2003, long before smartphones were really generally available. Sunflowers dwarfed me. I realize I'm not very tall, but sunflowers dwarfed me. And I was observing cassava and plantain and papaya and pineapples growing freely. I watched the yogurt processing, the packaging process, and I saw catfish literally jump out of the pond when they were fed. It was energizing and almost magical. And for me, really probably the first time in my life that I realized it's all connected. We are all connected. Today, Shanghai is an ecotourism destination. So 30 years after that Care commercial first moved him to action, Zamujo ends up serving Cecilia and me an incredible dinner of chicken, couscous, and delicious fresh fruit as he answers my endless questions and explains his vision of synergy, where nothing is lost and everything is reused. The water that circulates through the catfish ponds is then funneled through the pipes to irrigate the plants. Palm fronds and waste from the chickens are combined to heat and converted to biogas to heat the water that we showered with and to cook with. At the end of today's gospel, we heard, the greatest among you should be like the least, and the leader like the one who serves. To me, Godfrey Zamujo is the epitome of a servant leader, someone who selflessly uses their gifts to benefit others. In his case, while demonstrating that sustainable production can thrive in rural areas. On this final Sunday of the liturgical year, the question I leave with each of you is, what about the rest of us? This exercise is not meant to compare our efforts to Zamujo's or anyone else's. Let's remember the quote of Mother Teresa's, not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love. That, my friends, is what we are invited to do. Small things with great love. Although the expression servant leader applies to Jesus, it was first coined by Robert Greenleaf in 1990. And what has always stayed with me is Greenleaf's notion of the care taken by a servant leader to ensure that people's highest priority needs are being served. Greenleaf suggested that the best test is whether those served grow as persons. Do they become healthier, wiser, freer, and more autonomous? Might we see ourselves as servant leaders when we feed the hungry, collect clothes and gift cards, reach out to the homeless, when we sit as judge of elections on the local school board or as a committee person, when we serve as firefighters, teachers, and coaches, when we set up, moderate, or provide music for our community's Zoom liturgies, when we visit those in prison and support the transition of people once released, when we share prayer, Reiki, or Tai Chi Cha with others, when we provide attentive care to a spouse, a loved one, or a friend, when we see each person we interact with as whole and holy. It occurs to me, another lesson some of us might need to learn is to humbly and graciously receive from others as well as serve. God bless you all.